A very big
Ole
game this
Miss.
weekend. We're also waiting to see what happens with Nick Saban. What challenges could Alabama be presented with if Saban is not on the sideline against Georgia?
Listen, I think it's bigger than what people are making it out to be. I think it is critical for this game. Before I heard that he tested positive, I was picking Alabama in this game. Now I'm viewing everything because it's that big of a deal. Listen, Saban's not just a great recruiter and a great game planner. He's one of the best adjusters mid-game that we've ever seen in college football history. I got to feel it and face it firsthand in back-to-back SEC championship games. I've got the chance to watch him ever since. No one does it as good as him. He knows when to press the pedal. He knows when to encourage guys. He knows when to make changes like he did a couple of years ago in the national championship game against Georgia and Kirby Smart. The only reason they won that game is because Saban felt the team. He knew he needed a change. He made the change. They won the national championship. If he's not on the sideline and they need another change like that, who will do it? Who will have the courage? Who will have the fortitude? And who will get it done? I think it's vital if Saban's not there on the sideline.
That's one of the things about when people talk about the Belichick coaching tree, right? Oh, well, who did he produce? Who did he produce? Well, Saban coached under Belichick. And like Belichick, the feeling you get from Alabama, first half, it's anyone's game. Second half, it's an avalanche and the other team gets buried. Not having him there, does this make it a pick-em kind of game, Tim?
Absolutely. Listen, Georgia's the #1 defensive efficiency team in the country, and their offense is getting better. And yes, Alabama has a fantastic offense. It is #1 in the country in offensive efficiency, so it's good against good. But also, when something's not going your way, which happens, you face a lot of adversity in college football, in football in general. Who's going to be able to make those changes, adjust? Listen, if I didn't have Urban on the sideline with me in a lot of those games, do you know how many times I would go to him and I would say, hey, coach, I'm seeing this, this, and this. And he would say, okay, I like that. But also, have you taken into account this and this? And he would help me see things that I wasn't seeing. And if I'm too hyped, he would calm me down. If I'm not hyped enough, he would encourage me. And there's all these conversations. Plus, he knew when to empower his defensive and offensive coaches, just like Saban does. He knows when to take those shot plays, when to back it off, when to think time of possession, because he's so good at knowing, understanding, and reading his team and what they need to do in a game. If they don't have him, it totally changes the game.
Well, let me ask you this question. You're sitting there talking about it's a pick 'em, it can go either way. Yeah, that gives props to Nick Saban and his program in Alabama. But what does that say about Kirby Smart in Georgia? They're the #3 ranked team in the nation. You're a disciple of Nick Saban. Everybody says, like Paul Feinbaum, especially, that Kirby Smart is the closest thing to Nick Saban in college football. When the hell are you going to get over the hump? You was in a national championship game. You lost to Alabama, okay? You haven't won a national championship yet, and now Alabama appears to be vulnerable. What does it say that it's a pick-em if Nick Saban ain't even there?
But I don't understand what the knock is. The knock is that you're #3. The knock is that you barely lost in overtime in the national championship.
Hold it.
The knock is that you barely can't beat the best coach in the history of the game. So if he's #2, then that's not good enough. So we're saying you can only be #1 in the history of the game to be good.
Hold on, Tebow. Hold on. What I'm saying is, if Nick Saban is not there and you think that has a profound impact, should that not put more pressure on Kirby Smart in Georgia to win because Nick Saban's absent, is expected to be absent?
I do think it puts more pressure on Georgia to win this game, but I think we need to give credit to Kirby Smart and this team. He has an unbelievable defense, especially the front seven. No one runs against them. They're one of the best run defenses in the last 10 years. The offense is getting better. I love the way he's handled his QB situation. Kirby Smart is a really good coach, and he's one of the best coaches in the country. Not just recruiters, but coaches. And so we need to give him credit. But just because Nick Saban isn't there doesn't mean they don't have a lot of other good talent and coaches. By the way, Steve Sarkisian can still dial up some plays. So that's why I still think it's an even matchup.
Tim, how would a loss, like what kind of an impact would that have on either team's, Alabama or Georgia's, title hopes?
Well, what's crazy is whichever team loses, they're still going to have around a 40% chance in the college football predictor to make the playoffs. So they still got a chance, and I would think Alabama even has more of a chance if Saban's not there on the sidelines, because regardless what the committee says, you have to take that into account. If the head coach and the best in the history of the game's not coaching, you got to take that into account. And not that you want to play that up right now, in week 4 of SEC play, but I do think it's important to mention that, because I do think both of these teams will be competing at the end of the year to make the playoff. And obviously it's going to be an uphill battle for the team that loses this, but I still think the loser has a chance to make it.
I want to get back to Kirby Smart in this regard. I mean, you acting like I'm insulting, man, because I'm sitting there talking about, number 3 or number 2 ain't good enough. Well, damn it, at some point in time, Tim Tebow, it ain't good enough if the expectation is championship. Would Tim Tebow be Tim Tebow without no championship on his resume?
Hey, eventually you do got to finish. Eventually you do got to win it. You got to have a chip. You got to have a ring. But why I'm saying that for him is listen, he's doing everything it takes to build a program. Everything it takes from establishing a good offense and defensive line to being top 5 every year in recruiting. And he's been there right at the last seconds in SEC championship games and national championship games. And honestly, they should have really won the national championship.
Yeah.
They outplayed Alabama, but this guy named Tua came in. And so I totally get it. It's not good enough, especially in the SEC, to be number 2. But I do think he's taken this team in a great direction, not only to be successful for a handful of years, but maybe a handful of decades.
Well, Max, we don't need to talk to Tim Tebow about the NBA in the future, Max, because there's a whole bunch of great dudes that have never won the chip.
Well, he said you got to close, you got to finish eventually.
Close.
Yeah, eventually you got
close.
to. But it's not over for Kirby Smart. Ostensibly, this is not his last season coaching. Tim, our colleague, former NFL GM, Mike Tannenbaum, tweeted out recently that Trevor Lawrence is the best quarterback coming out of college since Andrew Luck. I know what he means. As a prospect, it doesn't work out all the time. Andrew Luck was an excellent quarterback. He didn't turn out to be the greatest of all time or on the list of the greatest of all time. But as a prospect coming out, you could see, ooh, this is a special guy coming out. The way Calvin Johnson was at receiver or someone like that. Oh, this is a little different. Saquon at running back. What do you think about Trevor Lawrence? What do you think that statement Tannenbaum made?
Yeah, I think when you look at his ability and his ceiling, he does have a huge ceiling. This kid has everything that you look for in a quarterback. He's got a big arm. He's a great decision maker. He is accurate with the football. He's a great kid that supports his team. He leads his team. He's humble. He cares for people. I think he would be a great selection to lead a franchise because he will actually do that. He will lead a franchise, not just be part of a franchise. So I think he's a great selection. But I do want to mention that there's been some other really good quarterbacks. I like the kid before him, Deshaun Watson. I like Kyler Murray. There are some really good quarterbacks before him. So it's hard to say, will he be better than those guys? I don't know, because you got to understand, in the NFL, it's also so much about fit. Lamar Jackson is unbelievable. He's a game changer. But if they didn't adapt that offense around him, he wouldn't be the same player in a different